So that's another thing. I don't edit.
You don't edit.
It's
all
just,
right, cool.
It's just going to be one take.
All right, I'll try not to say anything weird.
No, you can say weird things. Weird things.
But I don't want to. Okay, yeah, go for it. Whatever.
All right. So welcome back. I'm Jack. This is Jack Unmasked. Oh, another thing that we start with is your clean date, your sobriety date.
Oh, Jules, my sobriety date is April 1st, 2013.
Oh, wow. All right. June 6th, 2017 is mine. So I have with me today, I'm very lucky to have had the chance to sit down with Jules. She goes by...
Well, let's keep it just at Jules for now.
Yeah?
Just because we're talking sobriety.
Okay. All right. So tell me about...
I mean, we can still talk about art, but let's keep it generic.
Yeah, well, okay.
Unanimous. Anonymous.
All right. So, Jules, what is your, it's a common question that I always start with. What is your earliest memory of something that had an effect on you or an impact on you, either positively or negatively?
Well, my earliest memory that I always talk about, it was dawn. I remember the blue light, and I'm in the kitchen. Everybody's asleep. I must be really little because I can't reach the counter, but I could push a chair against it, and I crawl onto the chair, and then I crawl on to reach the counter, and I grab the bowl of sugar, and I shovel it in as fast as I can, as much as I can, to the point where my mouth is dry. I'm crunching the granules. I could feel it, man. And that was the best feeling that I'd ever had. I went, ah! Ah!
First high.
I did that a lot. I did the sugar rush a lot. That was my thing when I was a little kid.
How young you think we're talking?
I think I was like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your, generally, what was your childhood like that you remember?
We moved around. Was it? It was everywhere. It was like a few different places. I was born in England.
Oh, wow. I thought you were born in New York.
No, but I went to New York when I was 10 days old, and then I went back to England, and then I went back to New York, and then I went back to England, and I went to Greece, and then back to England. So I crossed the Atlantic like 25 times before I was 8. That was
for what reason? Why were you?
My mom was British. My mom is British. My dad is Greek, and they met in New York, but they were very passionate about getting out of America and returning to their homeland. And they didn't really actually do it till way, way after I was out of the nest. But they would constantly send me back, even if they couldn't get out, because they were working and trying to, do the whole American dream, but they didn't really like America. So, yeah, they would send me to different relatives, or sometimes by myself, like in me and my little brother. And so I grew up all over in England, not in London till I was much older, but as a kid, the place that I was born is called Madeley. It's a little town outside of Stoke-on-Trent, which is in what they call the Potteries, where they make a lot of like ceramics, like Wedgwood and stuff, like dishes, very British stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I have never been. And so at what point in your early life did you notice, so like for me, I noticed before I ever found drugs or alcohol, I overdid it with video games. I overdid it with spending time with girls, chasing girls. I overdid it with sports. What do you remember before substances or anything? Do you remember behaviors where you got super into things, or maybe that were foreshadowing that you kind of had might have a thing?
Well, it was the sugar thing hardcore, like pretty badly. Like I would do all sorts of weird stuff to get a high. Like I collected these bouncy balls that were 25 cents at the supermarket.
Yeah. Super balls. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I had a lot of them, a little thing of them. And I would go, my parents always had these big, dark, empty rooms because we always had just moved or were moving. So we didn't have furniture. So I'd go in like a dark, empty room and take the sugar and the bouncy balls, turn off all the lights, and like shovel as much sugar as I could into my face, and then throw all the balls around and run around until I fell down. And Yeah, I would do that a lot. I abused sugar a lot. And then I started writing on stuff a lot.
What do you mean?
I would I would write like either curses or the word why everywhere around town or around just all over the
Curses
place.
like curse words or
Like
like I
curses,
curse you?
like fuck,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yeah.
like shit, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Getting away with it.
or
Yeah.
cool, anything, you know, any word like things. Why? I wrote why a lot. And
It's the big question.
yeah, and there was that was when paint pens came out, deco markers.
Okay.
And they were really popular in the 80s because we used to there was these gift shops that everybody wanted like a little plastic jewelry box with their name painted with a paint pen on it.
Okay.
I was really into
The one where you push it down and the paint starts coming out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So those paint pens were such a big thing.
You shake it and it sounds like a spray
Yeah,
paint can.
yeah. So before I got a hold of spray paint, I got a hold of those, and I would just write on everything. And I ended up getting in a lot of trouble at school for that kind of shit.
Oh, you were doing this in school, not just like
Everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. And I would try to frame people by like fucking up their stuff and being like, they obviously look in our locker.
Yeah.
And everyone knew it was me. And I ended up having to leave. That was one of the times I got sent out overseas because I was in a lot of trouble for writing on stuff in middle school and also having social problems is what they called it. And so they had me go. My dad got them to agree to pass me from middle school, to give me a pass, a graduation or something if I left.
Okay.
So I went to Greece and I went to school on this little island and I continued to write on stuff.
How was Greece?
I've
always wanted to go personally.
I mean, everyone jokes with me. They're like, oh, your trauma is a Greek island. But it was fucking traumatic. I was by myself. I was American, and it was a very small village. And
How old are you at this
I was 13 when I got there. I left when I was 15, and I left in a wheelchair. Like, it was fucking crazy. And I was unsupervised for the most part. Occasionally, they'd have like some older Greek lady stay with us, or like they tried to send someone, but my mom and dad were like relatives, random people would come and stay. But for sometimes it was just me and my brother, because I also whined until my brother was also sent there. Okay. So he suffered with me, and my dad would send us like $300 a month to get food. As soon as the $300 came, we would go shopping and buy like so many Legos or like whatever, you know, like just loads of shit that we didn't need. Yeah. And then we'd have no money. And the old ladies in the neighborhood would bring us like these trays of rice with eyeballs in, and we'd pick the eyeballs out. They thought it was a delicacy. We were grossed out. I didn't speak the language, but I slowly learned the language. So that's one of the things that I have gratitude that I learned Greek. And, you know, and I learned to adapt. But it was rough a lot because they had a lot of prejudices in the little town about Americans. So I was called Palio Americana, which means American dirty whore, basically.
As a 13-year-old?
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And I was completely innocent at that point. I was just like,
I just like to write on
I
shit.
don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And it was funny, though. I was ostracized. But the thing that happened also, because it was assumed that I was a bad kid, the bad kids were the only ones that talked to me.
Gotcha.
So I got, you know, exposed to stuff like that. And I drank a lot while I was there. Me and my brother used to play restaurant, and the whole menu was alcohol with this, alcohol with that, alcohol with this. And we would get fucking wasted just at the house. And
at 13 to 15?
Yeah, I was 13. He was, well, how old was he when we got there?
Over
like
there,
9.
the drinking rules are different.
Well, we didn't go out. There was booze there. I don't know what we did.
Everywhere.
There was booze, like weird booze that my mom had left in the house. Port.
Oh yeah,
you ever had
it's
port?
Like super sweet, like dessert wine.
Yeah, so we were like, port and Metaxa. It was gross, but we did it. And we would get so fucked up.
And where do you go from Greece?
Then when we finally got out of there, and I had fucked up my leg, and they were saying,
you said you're in a wheelchair. So
they were saying it was psychosomatic because they couldn't see. I had a lot of X-rays, like probably a bad amount of x-rays because they couldn't find what was wrong. And then they told my parents I was faking it, or told my grandmother that. And I came back to America and they found that I had had some kind of a thing called a slipped epiphysis, whereas something had slipped out, the lining in between the joint and the socket of my hip. So I had to have corrective surgery. So I came back to America, and I think I was like 11th grade or 10th grade in a wheelchair.
Where in America did you come back to?
New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was there. It was weird. It was awkward. I was ostracized a little for being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't a cool wheelchair person. I was like super grumpy and not talking to anyone. And
you're like Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah,
he was pretty
kind
grumpy.
of like Lieutenant Dan, but not as fun as him. He seems even more fun than me. Yeah.
And so when, at what age or when do you start to realize that maybe you have a problem with alcohol? Or was alcohol your first problem?
I was already drinking. Yeah, I've always drank as long as I can remember. I was a little kid. I always had alcohol. I was allowed to have alcohol, and I loved alcohol. And I used it as a soothing thing. Whenever we left England, I remember my parents would have to get me a bottle of Advocar. I'm not going anywhere without it.
What is that?
It's a liqueur that they have in England that's like a creamy, like yellow, sweet, yummy alcohol.
Like eggnog? Like
kind of like kind of like eggnog.
Or like Bailey's or something?
Something like that. Yeah, okay. And I loved Bailey's too. And so that's as far back as I can remember. And whenever I flew on airplanes, I would bullshit them. Like, I need to collect these miniature bottles for my dolls. I don't actually drink them. And I drank them. And I drank whatever I could always. I always liked alcohol. And
what did that lead to?
Nobody said you're drunk, but I remember being told off for misbehaving because I'd be drunk at the dinner table. I put the peas on my head. And no one was like, the alcohol. They were just like, you're being bad. You're being naughty, or you're being out of control, So, and I did dabble drugs and stuff when I was in the wheelchair. I think I had painkillers, and I had alcohol, and I started not changing my clothes and just being really grimy. And it turned out that it was perfect timing because that was when grunge kind of blew up.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I was like ahead of the game, and everyone assumed that I had drugs as I got out of the wheelchair and was still grumpy, and people would I was super isolated, but people were drawn. I think I looked like I was like trendy, even though I was just not showered and wearing my dad's clothes for 3 weeks on it, And so people would ask me if I had this, if I had that, and I liked to have shit. So I always tried to have the drugs, and I would buy as much as I could. I would sell other people's shit, and I liked to have a lot of fucking access so that people needed me, and I thought of it as like bringing people together. And I started just what I thought was trying to be some kind of a like cult leader or something.
Facilitator.
I really did. Like, I thought that was what I was doing, and we were going to overthrow the president. I made flyers with the melting American flag that said "Dose the President," and like we pass it out. And I was really proactive about we need super soakers and we need liquid acid, and everything will be better if everyone just trips and everyone will open their mind.
You're not wrong.
And they'll be able to see things from other people's perspectives, be cooler and like more compliant with like being not an asshole. And that was my plan. I also thought that I was very fucking ingenious with. I invented crack tablets at that time, where
crack like the crack that I've done
in a microwave though, in shot glasses.
Yeah, and you scrape it with a penny.
Well, I thought I was very smart about it. I came up with it.
That's how I used to make it.
Yeah, so I was really excited about that, and that was and I was selling, but like always losing money, but like to have it so that people had to look for me, and I had other people selling for me, so they also, we were a family. And
like Manson.
Yeah. We even dressed up. We even dressed up as the Manson family for fucking Halloween. And did a lot of crazy shit. And that was my little family. And we were gonna
Change the world.
do so much stuff. But like we just really did a lot of drugs and connected on every level. And our heads were talking to each other. It was very, you know. So that happened. Everything went to shit. And I think I ended up, by 17, I bottomed out really hard. Bad acid trip on an airplane, kicking heroin,
Ugh.
miserable, not understanding what kicking heroin was. Didn't know why I was so sick.
Yeah.
Didn't know why. I don't even know. It was a fucking nightmare. And I ended up back at in my parents' basement by 17 and completely like shot out. If I'd been introduced to recovery at that point, I think I would have taken it because I was sure that I couldn't do it any more shit like that again. It was fucking horrific. But I just hid in the basement for 6 months and I wrote and I tried to develop theories. What do you want out of life? I want this. There's no good and there's no bad. Everything is good. Everything is bad. Just all this philosophy writing and trying to figure shit out and just trying to stay away from everything. And then someone mailed me acid and I ventured out of the basement because I was sure that heroin was bad, meth was bad, coke was bad, but I was still like, well, acid is not bad. And how bad is beer? Beer can't be bad. Weed is definitely not bad. So I would start fucking around and I fucked around for a while and then ended up right back where I was.
And how are you still in New York at that point when you moved back with your parents? Are they in New York?
I was in New York. I had gone as far as Arizona, a little bit dabbling in California, but when I flew back, it was back to New York. Yeah.
Okay. And when do you? So I don't know the timeline, but
so that was 17.
So when do you start taking your writing fuck on things? When do you start to realize that that's something that you want to actually do? And is that before, like, do you get into art before you get clean, or is it?
Oh yeah, okay. I was already at 7. I used to make word stuff for us to look at while we were tripping and you know, and I ended up like, I always used to write on stuff. I had learned now about graffiti. While I was in Greece, I was exposed to that book, Subway Art by Marfa Cooper. Okay, and I saw Lady Pink and all these people. And I started writing more with spray paint. And I never thought of it as a career. It wasn't a career. Things were really different then. There was no, like, this mural scene that you see now, like, didn't exist. Like, in the late 90s, there was some legal walls, but there wasn't people really making a living from it. Like, there was
it was all illegal, right?
It was illegal, or it was like, can I paint here? Yeah. You know, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like it is. It somehow happened.
Is this before Banks, that whole Banksy thing?
Yeah, it was before Banksy. Maybe I don't know if he was active, but he wasn't known.
Okay.
And it was like, the late 90s, I started really hitting the Bronx really hard, bombing. Like I was bombing and I was...
What does that mean?
That's doing very quick, kind of usually throwies they're called, like the bubble letters.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of those. I was hitting a lot of rooftops. That was after the train scene in New York was kind of dead because they had the buff. So we were hitting rooftops in the Bronx. We were hitting the highways. I was rolling with this crew BTC, which was Bronx Thug Connection, or Burn the City, or lots of cool things. But it was all these dudes that were pretty gnarly, and it was me. You know,
were they good artists?
I don't think
would they consider
nobody
themselves
cared
artists?
about art.
Oh, okay.
We really went out of our way to destroy art.
Okay.
When they painted the Wall of Fame, we went there and trashed it that night. Like, and it's funny because I actually ended up being one of the first females to ever paint there years later. And everyone thought it was the first time I painted there. And I was like, I've been here fucking your shit up for years, you know, like a little asshole.
Yeah.
But, that's what we did. We were just very like, It was just getting up. It was more about the moment than anything else. I mean, obviously, like you wanted your shit to run, you wanted to take people out and make sure that if they capped you, you had to go back and cap them. We usually had somebody that we were like vying spots with, and or they would be like, "We're against this guy," and I'm like, "All right, I'll fuck it up." And I didn't have to fight, but I got to. I had to change stuff and change people's letters into my letters or whatever. And I forgot that was there.
That's okay.
But yeah, it was fun. It was crazy. Like, I mean, I got hung upside down by my legs, over the West Side Highway.
For screwing up someone's.
No, to paint.
So you could reach a place.
Yeah,
Oh,
I did some crazy shit. We would be in the tunnels in New York with trains on. You would stand like the tunnel. There's two tunnels. Like train goes this way, train goes that way, and you can't. There's no room on the sides.
Right.
So if two trains are coming and you can't stand anywhere, you have to stand in the middle, and it's just the most crazy feeling of one train going this way and you're just like and like your skin's gonna get ripped off. It's intense, but I did it all the time, and
you weren't doing it at that time. You weren't doing it in an artistic way. It was more of a statement.
Yeah, it was not even a statement. It was just I'm fucking bored. And it was also I think it was artistic. Like I wanted it to look good.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't trying to do art, and I definitely would not call myself an artist. I thought art was corny. Artists were corny.
You were a vandal.
Yeah, we were just wrecking shit. Yeah. Bombing, destroying stuff. And
when does that change? How does that change?
Well, I started doing more elaborate pieces just because I saw stuff that was cool, okay. And I think I met people. I met this guy in Greece who was really good, and he was actually American, and we kind of really hit it off, and we had this whole thing that he went to London, and then I went to London, and we lived in this fucking closet. When I was 18, we rented a closet from somebody because that was all we could afford, and
to live in,
just painted. And he was actually really good.
He was a street artist as well.
He was a graffiti artist. But he was more evolved than just bombing. Like he would do pieces and characters, and they were fresh. They were cool. And I would try to do that and try to make things more elaborate. And I did have some art skills that I had kind of suppressed. So I did grow pretty fast in it, especially because I had that whole acid shit going on. So I was doing weird ass shit. I was doing like off the wall shit.
Well, yeah, and you're able to tap into some creativity that.
Yeah. So I was not afraid to do like weird, trippy shit. And one day I was painting a rooftop in the Bronx, and the woman who I had seen, this girl Pink, who I had seen in the graffiti books, she showed up.
In person?
Yeah.
To where you were?
Yeah. And she was just behind me. I didn't know it was her. And she was going, "You need to add some orange here." And I was like, "What the?" And then I saw it was her. To me, I'd only ever seen her in books. She was like an icon, like an idol, like not real.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen the movie Wild Style, it's kind of about her. But
I'm not. Now I'll have
old
to check
graffiti movie. But yeah, anyway, she got my number. She invited me to paint. And all of a sudden I had a job. I'd never been paid for art before in my life.
And you're still painting things in public, or are you now painting on a canvas?
No, I was running around the Bronx at night. I was still running around doing bombing when I met her. And then she would have me I would come work with her, and we would do restaurant murals. And she started really pushing me into like connecting me with bigger artists, like not just bombers. Like the bombers were cool, but she like fucking amazing historical characters in the graffiti scene. Buzz Wan, Zephyr, like all these people that I knew from books. And all of a sudden they would be like, "We're going to the 7 Yard. This is how you do this." Like bombing trains in New York was like kind of before my time. Okay. But I got to like learn about that stuff and painting with people that I had only read about. And she did that at night. And then in the day, she would have me go do restaurant murals with her. She would pay me. She was the first person to ever pay me for art. And I also just really would do whatever she told me to do. So it pushed me in a way that I wasn't able to push myself. Like, I think a lot of artists, their problem is they don't have confidence. And I if you told me hey, can you paint this other thing? I'd be like, no, no, no. I paint MUCK. I can do MUCK or MUCK or MUCK, you know, and I can't paint your name or any other shit. And she'd be like, you're going to paint this blue bull. And I was so scared of her, intimidated, you know, like that. I was like, oh, fuck, you know, so I'd go try to paint it and it worked. And I was like, oh, I can paint the blue bull. Like, I can do this. Like, I was the last person to think I could do anything. So, yeah, it worked out. And she would do things like take me to the Wall of Fame, where she didn't want to paint and they wanted a female to paint, and she pushed me in and I got to paint. And for real there, which, you know, I told you the story. So like, and she took me to like places that she was speaking at museums, and she would get me involved and I would get to talk. And she just really pulled me into stuff that I've always just had such low self-esteem and low self-worth that I wouldn't assume to be able to do anything. I just considered myself nothing, you know, like not ever good enough for anything. I still have a problem. Like, I won't assume that I'm allowed to be anywhere until someone tells me, you know, like I painted and got arrested for a long time. I got chased by the cops. I got told I was a criminal. I did not think I was worthy of someone wanting me to be there. So she was like kind of the person that helped me understand that and facilitated that for me. And slowly, you know, she would start just giving me jobs on my own. Like, here, you talk to this one, you go do this. And she would tell me what I should say, what I should charge, how it should be. And then I started getting my own people. And you know,
what year are we talking where she started like, to hand it over to you?
Well, I was working with her in the late 90s, probably like 99 into 2000. I was still doing, I always had side hustles at that point. And then I was also like trying to not do hard drugs and falling into that a lot too. So there was times when I was doing better and I was doing more. And then like by 2004, I was homeless on the streets, not talking to her, not talking to anyone.
In New York?
Then I was in San Francisco.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was in San Diego for a little. I was in New Orleans for a little. And I was traveling to try to escape heroin addiction, because my feeling was if I didn't have money, I wouldn't have a fucking problem. If I didn't have this comfort, because I started to kind of blow up a little bit. I got Calvin Klein paying me like to be in their ads. I had gallery shows in Chelsea. I had cool stuff was happening. I remember Altoids funded one of my murals, and it was just like every time something good happened, I fucked it up by, you know, I just wanted to check out of it.
And you deserve to celebrate. Well, that's what I used to tell myself.
Well, yeah, you know? Yeah, well, that too. But it was also just so uncomfortable. I was always uncomfortable at art shows. I used to get so wasted, like blind drunk before I would go in. Like people, you didn't
like the recognition.
I didn't like talking to people about it, and my whole art career had been hiding in the dark, and then watching from afar if people liked it or not. I never had to face it, never had to deal with it. And then all this, I don't want to be my fucking face with my shit, and it's basically like standing next to your like gutted soul. Like, explain this. What does this mean? I'm like, it was so weird, and I was hard, and so I would get drunk, and I made such a mess of myself. Oh my God, I would like vomit, like try to make out with the curator who was like a woman and not interested, and I had vomit on me, and like I won one Chelsea show that was like a pretty big show. I took my painting off the wall and sold it to someone downstairs on the street just to get a quick grand.
Oh wow!
And that's not cool with a gallery, you know. Like it's not okay. Like that's their. To me, it was like, it's my fucking painting.
Yeah, you painted it.
I'm gonna fucking sell it. Your guys are taking too long, and I don't want to wait for you. And I got a guy right here who'll give me a grand. So I did it, and I didn't think nothing of it except that I fucking blacklisted myself in a lot of ways, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I blew off so many very, very big opportunities. I fucked up so many opportunities, like just by doing too much right before anything. You know how it is.
Yeah, of course.
I was nodding in the biggest interviews of my life. Like people were with me and they told me like, Oh, you like straight up froze for 2 minutes and then came back to life. You know how that you do that with heroin? You're just like,
Yeah.
and then you're like animated again, like totally, like did it in the worst possible scenarios.
Mine was usually at home with my hand in a jar of ice cream or something.
Yeah, I mean that's probably better.
I've done it out at dinners with.
You're like trying to impress somebody. So
yeah, and they're like, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" It's like, "I'm just tired."
Yeah,
I'm tired, but
I mean,
my
so
face
obvious.
isn't in my plate.
But the pause is the worst, where you're just like, you know, when you do that on dope, I don't know if it happens with fentanyl, but like with heroin, you used to be talking, and then you just go somewhere for like a while, and you don't realize that it's like 5 minutes, but you think you're just still in the combo, and everybody else is just like, hello, are you there? Yeah, it's fucking weird.
And so you go to San Francisco, you go to all these places. Are you doing art all along the way?
I mean, to be honest, like a lot of times I didn't do a lot of stuff, but I would do. What I clearly remember about San Diego and San Francisco is I had these little bits of cardboard and I would paint on them.
Okay.
And I did have like a pickle bag of spray paint that I lugged around, but I don't think I was really putting up public work. I was going so into myself and so scared to exist. Like many of the cities that I visited and slept on the street, I knew people there. I could have said, hey, can I stay on your couch? But I was so like just in myself that I didn't want to like talk to anyone. And so I would paint these little bits of cardboard and I would sell them. Like I would just put them out, you know, when I begged for change. And people would give me like $3 or something. And I'd paint all night, some of those, like all night, like super detailed. I would paint that, you know, that book, Fear and Loathing,
of course.
The cover art. Yeah. I'd paint that cover art a lot.
Yeah.
And that was a big guaranteed I could get a pack of cigarettes.
Hell yeah.
You know?
Which is big.
I was
when
like,
you're homeless. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, they were like $3 at that time or whatever, $5. I don't remember.
They were 12 when I was homeless.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm talking about, earlier. Yeah, man. It was fucking crazy, though. And I'd robbed a lot of supermarkets then, too.
Oh, of course.
But,
and so what happens to make you decide that something's got to change?
Well, a lot. I mean, I tried a lot to stop. I tried to stop a lot. I always had a plan. And I was in a coma at one point for a while, and I had to learn how to walk again. And I was like, never again. Can't do it again. Yeah. Well, what happened was my lungs started to shut down.
Jesus.
And I thought it was asthma, and I went into the ER, and they had to intubate me. Ugh. You know what that is? Yeah, so they were trying to shove it down there, and I guess I was fighting. I don't remember any of this. I must have been fighting. My dude at the time said there was blood going everywhere, and so they hit me with a sedative, and I died. I was on heroin, and he fucking didn't tell them. So, you know, and so they OD'd me. And so then they had me on like some kind of life support thing for a while, and I was out. I was out for like 3 weeks.
So they intentionally kept you in a coma
I don't know what happened, but my muscles completely atrophied. So when I came back from it, I couldn't move even my finger. Couldn't walk, couldn't do shit. And probably I was so already malnutritioned that like, But I swore I would never use again. And I went to like physical rehabilitation, but I never admitted anything to anybody because I thought that meant my state medical insurance wouldn't work. I didn't know shit. I was just like, if I tell them I'm on drugs, they're not going to cover this. Yeah. It's going to be bad. This is all in the dark now. Sorry.
I know. It's all right. We kind of got light from.
Yeah, we're probably lit up.
You should check your phone to see what time it is so that you don't miss the meeting.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Because I can't check mine.
Oh yeah, we're good. We have a little more time.
What time is it?
6:45, 6:43.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can always, if you'd like, so that you don't miss the meeting, we can always do a part 2.
Yeah, we could do that if you want to do that.
You want to make sure we get you want to make sure you get to the meeting on time?
Yeah, I mean, we have time. It's like 1/2 of a block away.
I know.
It's up to you. We could stop now, or we could stop in like 10, whatever you want to do.
So what year? I'll just add before. I got a buddy picking me up in a few minutes to go out to dinner. What What year are we talking? Oh, you said what, 2013 was your clean date at the beginning of this, right?
Well, no, I got clean from that. I did not even get to my first sobriety. Was I bottomed out in that island. I went back to that island to try to kick.
Really?
At one point, like I did a lot of stuff to try to kick. So I took a small amount of heroin with me,
Went
and
back
I went to the island.
Greek Whore Island.
Yeah. and I kicked successfully. I was fucking so proud of myself. I have a diary from that time.
You still have it?
I still have it.
I love old diaries.
I fucking wrote. I would write like every couple hours. 3:35. I am kicking dope's ass.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I was so proud of myself.
Shit myself again.
I fucking did it right for the first time in my life because I had no way how to get anything, and I just spaced it out so well that I fucking came off heroin without getting too sick. I didn't get sick, and I've had horrible kicks.
Oh yeah.
But this time was the best time I'd ever done it. And except one time I used DMT to kick, and that also worked like a charm.
I've heard excellent things about DMT.
Yeah, I kicked with no side effects with DMT.
I believe it.
But this time I just weaned myself off, and then I started drinking like crazy, and then I met this guy, Coco Yorgo, and I was like, thought I'd scare him off by saying I only do heroin with cocaine, and he was like, "Oh, me too."
I happen to have
both. He's like, "Let's party!" Yeah, and it was fucking insane doing drugs over there. The way to get the drugs over there is insane, like the crazy shit.
Very different.
Anyway, I bottomed out, and I had a horrific time, a horrific awakening to the hopelessness of my situation, and I reached out for help, and I finally listened when someone said go to rehab. And I had to get there, and I got there through it was like a boat, a plane, a cab, it was crazy. Planes, trains, and automobiles. I got to rehab, and I found out about the fucking, the 12 steps, and I started doing the deal. That was in 2005. A lot of fucking crazy shit happened. I was getting sober with somebody, and he died. He OD'd and died when I got a year. And I stayed sober, but I got super depressed, and I got on a lot of meds. And I've got every diagnosis. So that sobriety was a great stepping stone, but I needed a lot of crutches to stay sober. And I ended up losing that sobriety in the way that the crutches got bigger than the God.
Yeah.
And I just started taking more pills than I needed, and to the point where I was like on fucking Adderall, Xanax, Oxy. I was just on all the same shit.
Yeah.
So I lost the sobriety, and then I got to have a fucking bottom again. And I went all the way out, back to New York, back to the needle, back to all the shit, back to my lungs shutting down. Oh. And I actually got kicked out of the ER. They were just like, because I actually had someone bring me heroin into the ER.
Yep, I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she didn't even know what she was doing. I was like, "Can you bring my bag?"
Oh, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I think
they just weren't giving me enough pain meds. I had to, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I was like,
they're like, no, this should be enough for anyone.
I'm already sick.
I promise you that's not enough. I'm still sick. Like, you know what I mean?
I know.
My appendix burst.
I wouldn't even admit that I was on anything.
I did.
Oh God. I was like, no, it's asthma. That was always my go-to. But yeah, so I got to have a gnarly ass bottom, like in a motel called Pelham Springs or Pelham Gardens Inn or
Where
something.
Is this?
It's in the Bronx.
Okay.
It was like one with the mirrored ceiling and the fucking neon around the outside. And I was staring at myself, and I knew I was going to die. Like, I actually made a phone call to a friend's dad who was far enough away that I told him what was happening. I was like, they said my lung capacity is at 70, like I lost 73% of my lung capacity. Jesus. I was talking like, this, That was how I was talking. It was so bad. I was like, and that was cool because I ended up having to quit smoking, which I thought would fix me. Didn't.
No.
And I was about to do my last, another shot of dope because it was time. And I made that call, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you probably will expire this evening." And I was like, "Oh fuck,"
that's a crazy thing to hear.
I know. And he was so deadpan about it that it was really real. People had told me you're going to die so many times. I was like, yes, I hope so. No problem. I was suicidal completely. Yeah. But faced with the real reality of it, I didn't want it. And I threw away everything, and I started to kick. And that was the beginning of my sober journey. And I was in that little motel, and I remembered, I went out day 2 of the kick. I went out for ice cream. I went to get Carvel. I don't know if you know what Carvel is.
Yeah, they make the ice cream cakes.
Oh yeah, well in the Bronx they make the best soft serve in the world.
Oh, okay.
And I had a Carvel soft serve which was my first higher power at that sobriety, I think, of this sobriety.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, I should call Tiris, who was my old sponsor here, and ask her how to kick heroin, because I know there's some tricks. You know, like I was like, something to make me feel a little better. And I called Tiris, and I'm like, hey, I can't remember, how do we kick heroin? And she was like, oh, you have to go to AA, dude. And I was like, oh shit, I completely forgot about AA. And I had all the numbers in my phone, because I first got sober in a sober living in Connecticut, like in 2005.
I know Connecticut well.
So yeah, New Haven. So I called all those people. I was in New York at the
tough.
time, and I went up there, and they took care of me, and they put me in rehab. They paid for my rehab, and I got kicked out after like 18 days. I stayed sober, and I had this really crazy journey back to Venice with like no license, no insurance, no registration. I drove cross country, like blasting speaker tapes and fucking going to meetings, picked up 2 hitchhikers. One of them got sober, still my homie today.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and we arrived in Venice, and my house here, I had rented this house a while ago where we have the meetings.
Yeah.
And it was I mean, I had it way fucked up, and they had continued that, and they had been paying the rent, and I had to ask if I could crash on the couch, and I crashed on the couch in a complete trap house. Like, they were selling heroin, there was open booze everywhere, there was pills everywhere, there was weed everywhere, and I just started going to hella meetings. My friend Jake was getting sober again at the same time. We had both relapsed, and he had 11 days less than me. And he had this horrible job for this cafe that, like, he was the night delivery guy all night. No pay except tips. And some nights he would have like one delivery, so he'd make like $3 a night.
That's terrible.
So I'd be like, come pick me up, I want to ride around with you, I can't be here, I gotta get out of here. We go to Marina Center, and we'd ride around, we go to the fucking 7 a.m. meeting, and we go to the 8, we go to the 9, we went to meetings all day. And I think that's why I'm like so into going to meetings all day, because I had to, because of where I got sober, and like a little bit into my sobriety.
I don't want to shortchange the sobriety part of this, so I think we should.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. Okay.
You know?
Wait, yeah.
Because you do a lot in sobriety, and you know what I mean? So
if you want to wrap it, we could wrap it. Whatever you want to do.
Only if you're willing to do a part 2 at some point.
Okay, yeah.
Within a month.
Okay, whenever you want.
Is that cool?
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
All right.
I got just a war story.
That's all right. That's a good place to start.
All right, cool.